1. I call this meeting to order. I wasn't doing the 1001, 1002. Before we start the meeting today, I'd like to make a brief statement. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin today's agenda, I'd like to take a moment to reaffirm our shared commitment to ethical standards that guide the operation of this authority. We are entrusted with responsibilities that impact our community, and it's imperative that we carry out our duties with integrity, transparency, and respect for one another. It has come to my attention that there have been instances of slander and unconstructive commentary circulating outside of these meetings. I want to remind everybody that such actions are not only undermine the work of this board, but also erode public trust. Let's focus our energy on productive dialogue and respectful collaboration. Additionally, I want to remind all board members that any potential or perceived conflict of interest must be disclosed. If a member has a conflict related to any item on the agenda, you're required to abstain from voting on that matter. This is not only a legal obligation, but a cornerstone of ethical governance. Thank you, and let's proceed with today's meeting. Roll call, please.
Shawnee.
Here.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
Here.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on May 13th and the special meeting held on June 12th of 2025?
Second.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or, I'm sorry, roll call.
Yes, sir.
Osborne.
Aye.
Heckman.
Is there a motion to approve the order of the consent agenda, items 1 through 7? And if you would, or the
Consent and regular.
all right, we'll start with the whole agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of the entire agenda?
Second.
Okay, is there any item on the consent agenda, items 1 through 7, that anybody would like further discussion on or to move to the regular agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Shawnee.
Yes.
Bird.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Okay, so that was to approve the order. Is there consent? I'm sorry, did you, it was to approve the consent agenda. Okay, all right, regular agenda, number 8. Continue discussion regarding the Logo Jet Center's request to extend the SGA hangar lease to accommodate the NDSCS A&P School and the North Dakota Army National Guard. And I believe we have a couple.
Yeah. This is the request to extend the leases for the 2 hangars in the admin building that accommodate the North Dakota Army National Guard and the new exciting A&P school for the North Dakota State School of Science. Dr. Flanagan is here. Jim Sweeney is here. This is just continuing the discussion that was tabled at the last meeting. They're requesting a 10-year extension of their lease, which currently expires February of 2026. And they have requested a 10-year extension from that date to accommodate the Army Guard and also the A&P School for North Dakota State School of Science. That's what's before you. They're here to answer any questions that you have or any comments.
Mr. Berg?
Madam Chairman, I think one of the things I was disappointed in is I did not get a chance to go through the hangars like we talked, Sean. We're going to set up a tour of the Army hangar and the school hangar. And there really wasn't, I know I got an email from someone, but Jim actually set it up yesterday. I really appreciate that. We walked through with the new leader of the program, and they're obviously all set up. And I think even their goal is, I think, having 20 students this fall on a 21-month program that I think is going to be really generate more mechanics, which is a critical thing for us here in North Dakota. I think the other 2 schools are Watertown and then Thief River Falls. And so I think, I applaud the effort in trying to start a new program and going through the legislature and doing everything that you've done. And aviation is obviously an important thing for North Dakota. It's important for us. And we want to be supportive of what you're doing and kind of help you grow that program, here at Hector Field. So I struggle with this issue because there's several different issues involved. One issue is we have a master lease on property we own for 10 years. And I'm like, I don't think we should automatically renew that for 10 years, depending on what the needs we might have here at the airport. And the way it's working right now, my understanding is we're receiving money from the tenant, and they in turn are renting space to the Army National Guard, and then also renting space to the Speed School of Science. And so I think from my perspective, as we've done in the old terminal and all the tenants that we have in the old terminal, I think going forward what we should do is rent directly to the Air Guard. And as an airport guard, Army Guard. Sorry, Jim. I think we should rent directly to the Army Guard. And obviously we want to take care of them and accommodate them long term. And then I think we should rent directly to Science. And I think we should do $1 a year lease to Science for the next 2 years, really to help the program get off and get started. So I think in talking with Jim, he's concerned about the Army Guard having the space long term. Obviously, there's it changes a little bit, but from an airport authority, we'll end up making more money, and we'll also, I think, be able to give the work with the school as they're going forward on what they need. So I would move that we not extend the lease at this time and rent to Science for $1 a year for the next 2 years and work out a direct lease with the Army Guard.
Is there any more discussion?
Stacy, the underlying lease is, we have the right to, is there a subletting clause in the lease?
There is.
What's that?
That it will not be unreasonably withheld from the airport authority in the event that the tenant would like to enter into a sublease. And then I'll just mention it, termination clause is a mutual agreement by the parties in the event of a proposed termination, just so that's out there. But there is a sublease clause, and that being allowed. And I would say that was the manner in which this began. With
Is there an
these two
approval
subtenants.
process for the authority or what?
Well, Jim, help me out with this. I think that you would have come to the airport authority when you had these two subtenants and provide that information to the board way back when. Correct?
Say again, I didn't hear you.
Well, this would have been brought to the attention of the board that you were going to utilize the clause to sublet the property for hangar 3 and 4.
I believe you did.
Yeah.
It was. It
Yeah,
was
it
when
was.
UPS occupied it. It was when Sanford occupied it. Yes.
Is there a penalty involved with the termination clause?
I wouldn't call it a termination clause. The parties can mutually agree to terminate the ground lease.
Okay. At no financial penalty?
There's nothing indicated, no. And that's standard amongst all of the ground leases on the airport.
I
Yes.
believe there's a motion on the floor. And no second.
Is there a second to,
I'll second the motion.
okay? And is there more discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I think
Will you come up here, Jim, so we
Sure.
can hear you?
from I'm not a parliamentarian, but I think the original request of our 10-year extension is probably needs to be brought back to the table. I think it was tabled at previous meetings. Is that accurate, John?
Yes, I think so.
It was just deferred.
So it's still on the table. So there's really the matter before you at the moment is the request to extend the motions for 10. The request for 10-year extension.
Motion is to not renew the lease and lease directly to the Army Guard and lease to Science for $1 a year for the next 2 years.
Would there have been a motion previous in prior meetings to extend the lease?
I don't believe so.
I don't think there was a motion. But we could look back at the minutes. There was no motion, there was discussion.
So just to address really quickly the subletting under paragraph 6 of the original ground lease, this lease shall not be assigned nor the premises, any part thereof, sublet or rented except with the written permission of the lessor, which the consent shall not be unreasonably withheld. Is the language.
Okay, we have is there a request stating that from?
So I wouldn't have that in my big book of JP Development Jet Center, but it certainly would be in the file.
Well, typically, if the tenant's going to sublease, they give you a copy of the sublease lease, and you would look at it, and we'd approve that.
I do not have that in my file.
Sean, do you have that?
There'd be something in the file I could go look, I guess. I mean, when Sanford occupied it.
Yeah, we've always,
Request, when and then Sanford moved out, UPS came in, that was before the board to set up UPS, so there's documentation in the minutes of those requests.
So do we have the documents, the underlying lease?
We've never requested the documents, the actual agreement between Fargo Jet Center and the tenant, we've never asked for those, but they're available if we want them. The board's never asked for those.
I'm just wondering how it was approved.
Came before the board, request a sublease, and it was approved.
And how long,
We could go back and find the minutes.
when does the current lease expire?
March.
March.
It's 26.
Okay,
So our request is 10 years from March.
okay.
The hangars, as you all know, have been a great incubator and facilitator for several different aviation operations, like Sean has mentioned, Sanford, and certainly it's been a critical component for the Army Guard, and now an excellent purpose. They've got 2 aircraft in the hangar. A couple of you have had the opportunity to see those, so it's a great. I know that there's support 100% from everyone for the school. This is a great means right now of us continuing to partner with them to make the whole program a success. And it's also, it moves this forward without any more debate. So whether it's 5 or 10 years, I'm just concerned about the tenants so that they have knowledge and security that they've got a home.
Sean or Stacy, what's the lease amount?
Right now, between the 2 hangars and the admin building, we're getting about $118,000 a year. It's somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. I don't have the exact amount here. It's the exact amount, and it goes up 2% a year, or it has gone up 2% a year from the start that they did. Just see if I can find what the amount is.
So for hangar 4, it's roughly $4,000 a month. Or $48,500 a year. Hangar 3,
The same.
Yeah, 3 and 4 are the same. The admin building is a little bit less. $41.98 per month for each hangar, and the admin building is
that's
Less than
run.
1,200.
about 1,100 something.
This is a pass-through lease, so the amount paid by Fargo Jet is just passed on, or is it a marked up lease?
Marked up.
How much is marked up?
We're not party to that.
We should have copies of those leases if we're approving those leases for subleasing. Again, I think it was marked up 10 or 20%.
Yeah, or more.
And that markup, covers all the expenses. We operate hangars, so that's been a natural role for us to janitorial. We're the first call when the lights aren't working or they need an electrical something. We're that. We do janitorial, snow removal up against the buildings. Plows come by for the airport, but then we're out there taking care of them. So we provide that. And then another minor factor, part of that whole thing too, is with us being on the lease, property taxes are still collected for the county, so we collect and remit those on these properties as well.
What is the rent you're charging the Army Guard and Science?
It's a few $1,000s more than this amount,
What's the rent for the school?
a few $1,000s more at the moment.
So the school is paying $7,000 a month.
Yeah. If it's your desire that we pass that through and just cover our costs to the school, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, well, we're happy to let the school be there at no rent, I think. We talked yesterday, Jim, and this really is basically, we've got two tenants that are long-term tenants, hopefully in the airfield. And I think they would be served well by working directly with this. It's basically, you're not using those hangars for the jet center. So again, I think this helps the airport authority. I think it helps the school.
Any more discussion?
Do we have any other sublet property?
So hangar 9, just north of these terminals, rented directly to Spectrum Aeromed. They don't sublease to anyone, but yeah, it's to Spectrum Aeromed.
Okay, but
it's not sublet.
they aren't leasing, so this is the only one. Sort of the backside of this, maybe we need to study our lease rates. If there's margin in there, are we charging market rates?
Well, when the board accepted the proposal from Fargo Jet Center after taking public bids, they were the highest bidder, and each time it's been renewed, they increase the annual amount paid by 2%.
Yeah, we've just gone through pretty high inflationary times.
That's the rate that was accepted.
Well, that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah,
we should be looking at all the things that we've got, and we should be pricing them appropriately. We should have a plan for these things renew and do that. And I suggested yesterday to Jim a short-term extension wasn't acceptable. And I just think it's important for us to be connected to the school and make sure we're helping them going forward.
Call the question.
Is there any more discussion?
Call the question.
You
Okay.
moved the question, Jim.
Pardon?
You moved the question.
No, I'm not going to. Call the question. Let's
You
call the
can't
roll.
call.
I can too.
You
I
can't
can limit debate. I call the question.
Okay,
vote.
we're getting off track. You can have a motion to end debate, take a vote. If that needs a second, that's another motion. Or you can just call, but if there's more debate, the chair doesn't need to recognize that.
I'll second Jim's motion.
So the motion is to call for a vote,
Okay,
but you need to vote on that motion.
we need to vote on the motion
To call
about
the vote.
limiting discussion. Okay, roll call?
Yes. Schoenberg, Cosgrove,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ekman.
Yes. And then back to the original motion. Do you want to restate the motion?
Well, the motion would be not to renew the lease and lease directly to the Army Guard and lease directly to Science. And the rate for Science would be $1 a year for the next 2 years.
Madam Chair, can I say something before you vote?
Sure. Will you please
Sorry.
stand right here so that we can hear?
Kind of out of order now because Jim made the motion to immediately vote.
That's fine.
So you restated the motion and roll call?
Shawnee? Yes. Berg?
Yes.
Cosgrove?
Yes.
Tim?
No.
Yes. Okay, number 9, receive April financials. Before we receive April financials, number 9, would you like to say something, Dr. Flanagan?
I think that'd be good.
Sure.
Thank you for inviting us here. As you all know, this A&P program has been in discussion for many years, prior to my time even. It's been a long time coming. What started it this time was we were fortunate to get an FAA grant, which has since been pulled, or frozen, I should say, which is not ideal for us. But I think NDSCS has a strong history of partnering with industry. One of the programs on our campus that are most successful have very strong industry partnerships. I don't understand all the nuances that are happening here today. All I care about is providing education for students. And our new instructor, Nathan, very talented. We're fortunate to have Nathan leading our program. Military background, instructor. I mean, we're blessed to have the people and the resources to do this. And so Jim and his company, the Fargo Jet Center, have been very supportive. We couldn't have started this A&P program without them. They were, as soon as we received the grant, they raised their hand and said, "We're all in. What can we do to help?" So whatever you do, we want to thank you for your help, and we fully anticipate that this is a long-term venture. We want this thing to grow. We have seen other programs in similar demographic areas that have 100, 200 students. We want this thing to grow. We want to outgrow our hangar space. So hopefully we'll be coming back asking for more space, but that'll be some time. But we also have dedicated, that the FAA has required us to dedicate lecture space, which is why it was so important for us to keep our 19th Avenue location. There was a lot of discussion about that also. But the FAA requires us to have dedicated lecture space. We did that. We have that in our 19th Avenue location, which is ideal. The proximity, the location is perfect. So things are lining up. It's going to be a great program. We have a great instructor. We already have students signed up, ready to go, and some are registered now for even more students. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, sure. So we really appreciate you coming here today and presenting. And we want to help you. So we'd like you to tell us what else we can do for you. We're very involved in the legislature. We received $40 million from them this year. We're very involved with the federal government. We've received probably $100 million from them. So if there's ways we can work together on helping get those dollars, because I know some of them are grants that you're looking at, we want to help with that. I think second of all, in your facility, if there's things we can help you that need capital construction or something like that, we're certainly open to that. But really how we can help you, we really want to partner with you. And obviously recruiting students is important. And so if we can use our connections in Fargo Airport and all the people here to help you attract those students, we want to be able to do that as well. So
perfect. We just need students.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it will grow. So
we got one of the best student recruiters right here. So, but anything along those lines, in fact, if you would be able to even come back, think about it over the month and come back with a wish list of things that you think we can help support you on, we'd love to do that.
So give us a little time, but next week, so you may all know that Representative Cindy Schreiber-Beck worked really hard to get some money for innovation, for innovative programs that will help workforce in the state of North Dakota. She was leading with this program. she testified in the legislature this session about this program. And our application is due next week, and we're going to be asking for $1 million from that innovation grant for this program. Nathan needs more money for trainers. You're gonna have to help me out here, Nathan. Avionics trainers, hydraulic trainers. So more equipment.
More equipment. We're looking at getting additional aircraft as well. We have 2 in the hangar now. So we'd like to get a helicopter in there as well, because as an A&P mechanic, you can work on any airframe, any power plants. The more exposure we can give the students, the better A&P mechanics we're going to have on the outside of this. So trainers, anything that's hard to reach inside that aircraft, if we can pull that out into a trainer to basically demonstrate the system, that's what we want to give them. Some of those trainers are fairly expensive. You're looking at some of the trainers $20,000 to $50,000 for just the trainer. We're looking at the innovation side of things as well. Virtual reality. There's some programs now that are out there that's FAA certified. So we can get them in. It's virtual reality, fully interactive, to where you can actually work on the aircraft, and it's going to give you that real feel and give you that exposure to that specific system. So we're trying to make this program cutting edge. In order to make that happen, we need more funding.
It's interesting. I came here from Arizona.
Any difference?
Well, what I was going to say is that it's the home of Fort Huachuca. Fort Huachuca has just exactly what Nathan was saying. They train all of their mechanics on their drones. The big drones, Northrop has a big facility there, and it's all VR technology, because they don't want to bring those drones out of operation to train, so they do it virtually. There's a lot of cool technology out there. So,
Well, I would just say if you need a letter of support from the airport authority for any of the requests that you're doing, just don't hesitate to let us know. And then obviously we're in the middle of a big construction project. We're not just going to sure how that's all going to shake out, if we're going to be out of money or not. But I wouldn't hesitate for some of these things that you need to make the program better, to let us know what that budget is. And, you know, I don't know if we have the ability to help, but if we do, you're not going to offend us by coming forward and letting us know.
Thank you for coming up, Dr. Flanagan from
Anytime.
Wapaton. Thanks for being here. And I'd like to just thank the Jet Center and Jim Sweeney for being so proactive in the development of this program. I think it's really important for the state of North Dakota. So thank you all. Before we move on to number 9, I would like to remind the board of decorum under Robert's Rules of Order 43-23-27. Lewd or inappropriate comments will not be tolerated. And I remind all members that our discussions must adhere to the rules of decorum and respect. Thank you. Number 9, receive April financials. Tana?
Hi, good morning. I know we have a lot on the agenda today, so I am going to go through the April financial recap, probably a little quicker than normal, but there are no issues. I'll start with the operating account. Our revenue right now is about $200,000 above budget. There are no issues there. Items tracking higher: interest, Fargo Jet Center, car rentals, Skydyne. Items we're still watching is parking, as always, for this construction season. If we look at the expenses, our expenses are tracking lower than budget by $1.3 million. A lot of reasons for that. If you look at the budget line items, almost every item is below budget, which is good. The salary and benefits are the majority of it, and that's just because we budgeted for open positions we have not yet filled, and so that takes up a bigger majority of that. And because the parking revenue is lower, our parking management fee is also lower, so that plays into the expenses as well. So overall, our net income right now, we're 1.5 million above budget. That's tracking in line with what we had expected. So I don't see any issues with operating at this point. Our employments, these are the KPIs to take a look at. Don't see any issues there. The 24 numbers are a little bit skewed from the 25, and that's just to remind you that 25 numbers are compared to 24, but 24 is compared to 23. And it's in 23 where we were still getting some extra COVID revenue and some CARES grant funding. And so it really skewed the numbers for 24 and made them look low, which makes 25 look great. So just to clear that up for you. To note the employments, everything in blue, if you can see that, is actually a record. So we have been at record employments consistently every month since last April of 2024. March was still our highest employments ever, but even for April and May, we have set records each month. Our employments, right now from January to May are up over 14% versus 2024's numbers. So it's nice to see that growth consistently every month. It's been a couple months since we've talked a little bit in detail about the parking revenue and car rentals. So I just wanted to touch base on those because I kind of missed the quarterly update. But this is the parking one that we see. We have tracked it. No surprise.
Could you enlarge those numbers a little bit?
Sure. Does that help or not help?
More.
It's in your packet, Mr. Burke.
Okay,
Does that help?
that helps.
Okay. So our parking right now, if we just look at the charts actually, 2025 versus budget, we're about 820,000, 24,000 under budget. We're about 240,000 less than last year. We knew this was going to be a guess as to where our parking numbers would be, and I know SP Plus is tracking it as well. And so I don't see any major issues, just the consistent one that we have always known of. If we look at the restaurant, I just wanted to point this out because our employments are getting higher. Our employments are setting records every month. And so our restaurant is also seeing that as well. Our restaurant is 20,000 higher than last year in income. And it's a 21% increase over last year. So very good for our restaurant versus last year.
Anna,
yes?
One thing here, and we're seeing employments climb 14% a year. And I would assume that that's driving some of the increase. But if we could have our vendors that are generating revenue, just take a look and look at any inflationary cause to that or new offerings or different things. Sometimes during growth periods, we just attribute it to the increase in employments, and there may be other factors there. We could just have the vendors kind of break out what that looks like. It's same, parking would be especially important as we look at the number of cars parked and the revenue. Just so.
And usually I do get a monthly update from SP with a whole lot more detail with the number of cars and the lots and long-term and all of that. I did not receive that yet this month, so I'll make sure I get that next month and can report on that in a little bit more detail.
And even in the restaurant, is it an increase per capita, or has there been price increases, or are there new offerings? Just the next layer of the onion there, just so we don't miss what we're seeing in growth factors.
Oh, good points. And I can take a look at the restaurant commissions that they submit monthly and stuff. I don't specifically see those. I didn't have a need to, but I can work with Joan and see what extra details I can pull out of it. Or reach out directly to Skydine and see what they have as well.
They should have those numbers pretty easily.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
I'm not sure if they report that to Joan or not, and if not, I'll get them for next month and include them in the packet for you.
Thank you.
And you are, good points. It's not just employments, you know, it's are people ordering more food? Did the prices go up? Did they change their menu? And so it's a variety of things. You are correct. Just the car rentals to point out, Enterprise and National hold the market share. Car rentals have been up 15, almost 16% over 24 numbers, and they've been at 30% over our budget this year. And I felt the numbers we budgeted for 25 would have held very accurate, but we are proving that the car rentals are a very hot commodity this year so far. So the breakdown just shows Enterprise and National hold the market share, then Hertz, and then Avis. So we are ahead of budget in the car rentals, which is great. We are ahead of 2024, so it's nice to see that car rental increase. And same thing as you asked, is it just employments that's causing this, or is it outside people that are renting from the airport instead of picking up somewhere else? Is it the prices? Is it, you know, what are the car rentals doing too? That's attracting more people. So I'll see what information I can get for you on that as well. If we go to the terminal funding summary, this was kind of a snapshot of what Tom and I had put together last month, and really none of the numbers have changed through the end of May, except this far right column. I just updated the extra or grant reimbursements that we had received in May. So no changes, no surprises out there right now. The terminal project recap, just to give you a quick overview, because I know when we had last Thursday's meeting, and that one bid came in way less, we thought that was just going to change our cash tremendously, but it didn't. Our cash stays about the same. And that is because even though that one bid came in less, we also added jet bridges to the cash forecast that were not on there last month. We also added the South GA projects that we have going on, and those costs we didn't truly have good numbers until the bids were opened. And so once we added all those in, those things all kind of seem to wash, which is good. We're not out any additional cash at this point. So the way things sit, a lot of information out here, excuse me, a lot of information out there right now, but the way things sit, it looks like if everything came in, our discretionary funds, everything, we're at about 39 million out of pocket. But you know, you heard Tom talk last month. And our discretionary money is never going to come in at 100%. So I think more realistically, we're still in that 55 million cash needed. And we're good with that. And Tom gave a great presentation last month that said this is kind of right where we had been budgeting, and this is right where we're falling in line with. So we still feel very confident with these numbers. And we are tracking the projects individually and as a whole as the terminal.
Yes? Are these numbers based on the 50% success in the grants? Or?
No, they are not. These are based on 100% of the funding.
Okay.
And so if you look like at the terminal right now, there's $6 million pending, and that is going to be a ATP grant that is pending, and that is a discretionary competitive grant, and that would be for the jet bridges. So these numbers, that 39 million that I talked about, 39 million, this is based on 100% funding.
Okay.
But we know that we'll probably get 50% of the discretionary that we asked for. And so we know our cash is about that 55 million.
And going forward with the budget, you use 50% also, correct?
Right. When I do let me see here. When I do this sources summary, this is something I built into our software. I take into account when we are going to need money, when we're going to be out of money. And this is all based on what if we just got 50% of the funding. So I always play this worst case scenario.
Okay.
So if we got 50% of the discretionary competitive funding, somewhere in 2027, we are going to need 32 million. Because we know we have big projects coming up in 28, 29, 30. And so this money is being very conservative, and we're basing it on getting 50% of the competitive money that we're asking for.
And the projects stand on 28, 29, and 30 would only be started if there were grant dollars available. They're
right.
% cash.
Right.
So
right. That's my understanding. But right now, I take everything off the CIP, the construction in progress report that Mead and Hunt provides with all of the projects laid out.
So we would, yeah, there's kind of a catch-22 there. We've got cash if the 80-90% of grant funding is available. We have match, but if it's not available, we'd actually have more cash.
Right. So it's hard to estimate and play out into even 27 and 28 because we don't know what funding is available. We don't know what types of grants we can go after. That's why they're consistently looking at the projects and figuring out, do we rearrange the timing of the projects? Can we rearrange the timing to go after any discretionary competitive money that might be available? And so as it sits right now, I have no concerns with the terminal projects, with the apron projects, the apron rehab, the South GA that we did the bid opening for. All of that is playing into this. And no surprises. Our parking project, it says that we are going to be about $4 million over that 40 million. But I know from what McGough is sending me and stuff, that will probably come in less than that. Unless there's some unforeseen expenses at the end, because I know there might be some employee parking or something Sean and I had talked about, but the parking, I'm confident with these numbers as well.
So Tana, on that prior slide, go back.
Sorry, on which one?
That one right there.
Okay.
Oh, the one showing the trend line?
Yes.
So is that blue line actually tracking our, so you have like 430.25, 630.25. Is that actually tracking our revenue right now?
It is, because right now we're still advancing on that loan. So basically every invoice we get, we can get 100%, or not reimbursed 100%. We can advance the Bank of North Dakota loan.
That's not parking revenue, that's the cash for the project.
Correct, correct. This is the Bank of North Dakota loan. So right now we're at really no out-of-pocket costs until probably late this summer. Then we'll be at that 40 million, and then we'll have out-of-pocket costs. That was all I had for the recap for this month.
Tana, I had one question on the apron and the glycol project.
Okay.
Just a summary there. I'm just wondering, that seems, heavy on airport cash, lighter on grant funding. And is there some reason for that?
Let me look here. Don't look at what's up because you'll be extremely confused. Right now for the apron glycol, that is all of the funds that we have tied to it. We did receive that federal discretionary grant. Right now, I don't have any other grants associated with this project right now, and that could change.
So that,
But for right now, yes, our out-of-pocket cash on that project is high.
Sean, are there any other grants that are targeted there? That seems like a 50% cost to the airport without grants.
Yeah, I think we're working on those. Tom, I don't know if you have any updates on where we sit, but there are some things that are pending yet.
Yeah, the funding, I don't know if you can hear me, but the funding that Tana brought up for the competitive, we have actually done some maneuvering of projects to maximize our ability to compete for additional funding. And that's actually covered in Tana's numbers. As we grow to the end of the project, typical federal funding for competitive categories, you cannot reimburse for work that's already done. So that's why we have kicked back and delayed the jet bridges and items such as that, so that we can go after additional federal funding in this next fiscal year.
Tom, is that just a project that doesn't typically receive the grant support that other projects will?
Terminal projects as a whole, the FAA has kind of a priority system. Terminal projects as a whole rank very low. That's why we end up spending quite a bit of energy trying to work with the political players to help entice the FAA for funding. Other projects that have higher priorities are runways, fire trucks, fire stations, things that are safety or runway related projects. But yeah, on the terminals, it is a tough battle.
But I can understand that with the apron extension, but the glycol project seems environmental based.
It is environmental based. We did use that to leverage some of the original funding. Each administration tends to have their own little special categories they like to promote. As you look at the Biden administration's language we used in a lot of those, we pushed environmental items, we pushed gender neutral bathrooms, things such as that. All that in the new administration we have washed because that is not selling. It actually draws more attention to and questions towards your project. So it's been kind of a battle is trying to manage the expectation of each administration.
Well, I understand the apron expansion. The glycol project would probably have been required without terminal expansion also.
Right. We did get discretionary funding to help fund part of that de-icing and glycol at the beginning. If you recall that, actually the collectors and stuff like that did get discretionary. The remaining piece, what tends to happen in the federal process is if you ask for discretionary, they're going to require you to take your entitlements first. So like the remaining portion of the de-icing runoff that goes out to the sewage lagoon will most likely suck up your entitlements before we'd ever get to the discretionary.
Well, hopefully we'll see that grant funding come up on that.
We are trying to schedule meetings right now with the FAA to maximize the additional requests that we have there. We're optimistic, but again, I know there is a lot of requests and not a lot of money.
Thank you.
Anything else, Tana?
I don't have anything unless there's any other questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to number
We need a
10.
motion to receive and
Oh,
file the April
we have-
financials.
Is there a motion to receive and file the April financials?
So moved.
Roll call.
Shawnee? Bird?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 10, receive update from TL Stroh Architects on the parking structure. Terry Stroh.
Morning, everyone. Things are going well. We actually have a hold the date on August 19th, I'm sure you all know, for a ribbon cutting. So, a lot of details buttoning up. Actually had Walker, Scott from Walker Parking come here the other day, walk through it, gave us some suggestions, that kind of thing. We are also just starting the piers for the Skyway on the ramp side this week. So rain stopped for a little bit, but so yeah, everything's on schedule and going well.
Do we have any questions for Terry?
Probably not for Terry, but you said August 19th is a hold on ribbon cutting.
Yeah, for ribbon cutting. Yeah,
That's on my list to let you know. That was just set by the chamber.
sent out. Yeah.
Okay, we've had a little bit of herky-jerky motions on ribbon cuttings. I just want to make sure that we have a complete invite list and everything like that.
Yeah, right now I think
certain
it's more of a
dignitaries
hold the date, but I think
No,
we're
certain
moving
said
to go and
certain dignitaries should be involved. In what's available? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Jerry.
Great, thanks.
When's the first car gonna park? When's the first car gonna park in there?
Right after that, I think, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
We're down on revenue. We need
Well, we'll have a lot of parking really close.
Looks amazing. Thanks for all your work.
Bet.
Number 11, receive update from Mead and Hunt regarding terminal expansion and modification project. And we have Angie Corwin online.
I'm not. She wasn't able to make it. So
Oh, she wasn't. Okay.
I am not Angie.
All right. Thanks for coming in, Joe.
Yeah. Terminal expansion is going well as well. We had some noise earlier, so we got some work going on in the renovation. But as far as the expansion goes, we're working on ticketing, putting that underground duct in, getting ready for a slab on grade there. Down on level 1 of the expansion, the MEP is pretty close to wrapped up, just doing some miscellaneous tie-ins, taping all the drywall down there, getting ready for paint. Up on level 2, finishing some minor electrical work, so all the framing's done, and we'll be getting ready for drywall up on level 2 starting next week. Up on level 3, we're getting ready to pour that slab. There's just a floor slab up there, nothing structural, and then we're going to start framing up there after that. The passenger elevator is in and done. We'll be starting on the freight elevator, I believe, in a couple weeks. So that's about it for the terminal expansion. On the exterior of the building, we'll be looking to put in the curtain wall frames starting next week, along with some skylights, and starting the exterior work for the exterior metal panels, and also starting on utilities out there. So a lot of work going on in the expansion. Inside the renovation here, we got 2 enclosures. The first baggage claim here, we're actually swapping the baggage claim out right now. So looking to open that back up here in July. And then at the west entrance, we're actually rocking and taping that right now. So getting ready for paint over there and getting ready to open that back up so we can shut down the main entrance here in a month or so.
Joe, what's the tentative date to close the restaurant?
July 14th.
Okay, so like Subway, everything shut down. That's their last day of operation.
I'm not going to tell them their last day of operation. I don't know how much time they need to move, but we will start putting up temporary construction walls to shut that down and start demo on July 14th.
And as of this point, we are still on schedule.
Yes.
Any other questions for Joe? Thank you. Number 12. Tana, receive the preliminary 2026 budget.
All right. So you guys all have the budget in your packet. And it is represented in 2 different ways, because last year I know one of the commissioners wanted to see what was the percent increase over prior years. And so that is in there. And then the other way it's represented is just the prior years. So you look at whichever one you want. Hopefully it's accurate. I know Joan caught a little error and stuff for me. In the rentals, there's just not one listed. That'll get updated, so not a big deal on that right there. Anyways, I'll just give you a quick recap on the budget, high level overview, and then you guys can ask me your questions that you have. Right now, I split the budget into the operating, which is our day-to-day activities, and the capital, which is all of our projects. And so if we look at the operating account, currently we have our revenue being at 16 million with our expenses being at 11 million, which means at the end of the year, I know we wanted to have a balanced budget or a zero budget, which would mean at the end of 2026, we would be transferring about 5 million into the savings account to be used for capital projects, other things like that. I do expect that number to change because this is just the first reading or the first presentation of it. And revenue and expenses will change based on your input as well. So I just have the revenue listed. It's also in your packets. The revenue is pretty well tied out because the rental fees, building rentals, expansion, they're all tied to lease rates. We estimated what the interest would be based on 3%. I think that's pretty accurate going into 2026 right now. And then the reimbursements that we will get for TSA and the law enforcement. So the breakdown of expenses are found in your packet, but just to quickly look at starting with the revenue. So the majority of our revenue, 55%, is going to come from parking, and that's at 9.02 million. That quote came directly from SP Plus. So that is in there. We also have the operating revenue and security reimbursements. The operating revenue would be like, now I'm trying to think. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. The ARP and security reimbursements make up a lot of that 12%. But the building rentals, the expansion, it just kind of breaks it down to where our major source of revenue is. If we look at the breakdown of expenses, right now we can see that personnel and benefits basically make up about 41% of our expense budget. Our other services that we have that make up 20% are accounting, legal, security, the parking management fee, warranty, software. And that is at 4%. That is something I wanted to specifically talk to you guys about. I reached out to Flint and got a quote from Sarah Flowers on what the advertising budget would be. And the advertising budget for Flint this year is $586,400. Now to break that down, 330 of that would be Flint's actual services, and the 250,000 would be like their ad buys. I noticed in prior years, 100% of this cost always went to the capital budget. But I pulled this out because I asked Sarah specifically, you know, how much is capital, how much is operating? We kind of had a lengthy conversation on that, and she determined that about 70% of all of the marketing and the ad buys are overall for airport. Digital marketing, promos, promoting business, you know, generating sales. And so I put 70% of that in the operating budget this year. And I only put 30% in the capital budget. Because capital to me means an investment in something, like the website or costs that generate measurable future benefits, like advertising for the parking and the new terminal. And so I split that out, and I don't know how you guys feel about me moving some 70% of it into the operating, but I truly feel that that's where it belongs. Do you guys have any comments on it working that way or not?
I think it's appropriate, Tana.
Okay. Okay. So that is broken out that way.
Tana, the only thing is we don't want to split up so much that we can't get a handle on what our overall cost is.
Right. Right. I get that. But I just did not feel that 100% of marketing should be capital. Because capital is, you know, like an improvement or an investment. And to me, marketing is a day-to-day thing. So that's why majority is operating. And Sean and I had talked about that, and we kind of have a little plan to work out how we're going to divvy those costs up, whether it be monthly, quarterly, or how we do it. But, and Sarah and I have also talked that she may have some good insight how to break out the invoice or something a little better as well. Item subject to change, I just want to note this. Other things that are taken out of the operating expense, as it was in operating last year, was the Bank of North Dakota payment for the debt, for the $40 million loan. I moved that to parking because I feel it's the parking loan, so it should come out of the parking account. So in the 2025 budget, it was 700,000. You will notice in the parking budget for this year, it's going to be about 1.5 because that is the estimated amortization and principal and interest payment for 2026. Salaries, we received a quote from Pro Resources, and I don't know if we want to reevaluate that or not. It's less than our 2025 budget, but the benefits have increased. And so I haven't talked to Sean on this yet, but I just want to make sure that we're including any new hires, anybody like that when the terminal expansion comes on board. I just don't know. I know we've had major conversations about the salary portion last year and we did increase it. So I think it might be worth a conversation to see if we want to increase the salaries yet for 26.
Tana, on salaries there, and I'm sure Sean can help on this, is that we continue to see that line item in our operations less than budgeted. And if we're having long-term open positions, that might be something we need to look at different ways to fulfill those needs. And so just if we could
So on
have that in
Monday, if our mechanic shows up, we will be fully staffed for the first time in 9-10 months, maybe more. And the 2026 budget includes one additional full-time building attendant that we would intend to hire the second half of 2026. That's the only additional position that's in the 2026. But Monday will be fully staffed if he shows up.
Well, and I just want to make sure as we look at this preliminary budget that there are some things I think we need to consider going forward. And that would be to make the CFO position a full-time position at the airport as opposed to contract. And we should also look at human resources and marketing in that same vein.
Are you reading my notes?
Yeah.
I have that coming up.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Additional thing on the salaries. So as I told you at the last meeting, the budget is based on a 4% cost of living. That's what's in there now.
Yeah.
We do not have the North Dakota Public Health Insurance Trust increase or rates for 2026. We hopefully will have those before the next meeting or sometime in July.
Well, and Sean, Tana, do we have any further direction from the state on our 3% cap? Is it budget? Is it dollars? Do we have any input there yet?
There was a meeting yesterday and I haven't had a chance to talk to Susan or Randy from the county, but there's a lot of questions out there. The Aeronautics Commission has questions out there. There's a conflict now in the language in the bill between what's in the statute for airport authorities and others, mill versus a levy. So there's a lot of cleanup language that's got to come in the next session, but in the meantime,
well, I just think, our budget process, if somehow it ties back to growth and budget, we have to make sure we're counting everything correctly, because if they'll only fund a 3% budget increase, we've got to come at this a little differently, especially with the new expansion coming online. So, but to be answered later, I guess.
So, yeah, I mean, the salaries and stuff, along with everything you just mentioned, are still yet to be determined. So, this is the first preliminary, so there will be changes. In our operating budget, we have a category for other services that had engineering, quality control. We're going to reevaluate that. Most of those costs right now I have down in the capital because they're associated with capital projects, but there might be a little, I don't know. I think maybe we should plug some in just in case we have some operating costs where we need, a small capital project that would be considered operating where we have some engineering expenses or something. So I think that's a category to look at. I know Sean mentioned yesterday, so I'm not sure if I have all the wording correctly, but the electricity and natural gas, he's working with Mead and Hunt to determine, or McGough, or one of those, to determine what will our additional costs be once the expansion is complete. So we know that the expenses will go up in those line items once Sean gets some good information on that. The amenities committee, the board chair, Paula, is on the amenities committee, as is Sean, and I just don't know if we should put something in the operating budget for amenities, because I'm not sure where the additional funds are going to come from. We're talking about additional costs in that committee, and they might end up being in 2025, but putting some costs in 2026 might not be a bad idea either. So I'm just going to put that out there, that I'm just keeping that on my notes.
Tana, that was the scope of that one, and maybe if Jean is on, she can comment, but I think we had a $220,000 budget, and hopefully that amenities committee will not have to carry over after we finish our scope.
Right, and that's for 2025. So yeah, that's why I just kind of put a note for 26. I just don't know if there'll be any lingering expenses that we may need or not.
Okay.
Excuse me. The last item I just wanted to mention, because as I was reviewing the marketing, and then I was looking at the accounting, or the CFO, which I'll get into in a minute, I just wondered if we have RFPs, and sorry to blindside you with this, Sean, because I hadn't asked you ahead of time. But normally, you know, I've seen airports have RFPs, like 5-year RFPs, where they go out and at least get a request for a proposal for banking, legal, accounting, marketing, and now that I'm thinking about it, engineering. So just wondering, doesn't really play into the budget, but just thinking that if we don't have RFPs and stuff out there, maybe it's something we should do, because then we always, you know, kind of keep everybody on their toes and getting the best out of them if we're asking them to kind of bid for their business. Even if we stay with them for 20 years, I still think RFPs are a good idea to have out there. So maybe something for the board or committee to consider. To go into the capital really quick, this you guys are very well versed in. The projects that will be on the 2026 budget are to finish the 3 terminal projects. So based on the cash forecast, that's about 42.6 million will be spent on the capital projects. Parking, there will not be any capital projects. We'll just be paying down the Bank North Dakota payment. And then our other big projects will be out there will be the South GA, and we're going to start looking at the runway extension widening. So there will be a smaller cost there, but also a project for 2026, because right now that is on the capital improvement plan, but subject to change based on what Mead and Hunt and Tom determine need to be moved around for federal funding. So those items are listed on the capital expenses in your packet for right now. But what I didn't put on there that I should show you is this is where I have the property tax or the mill levy or whatever we're going to call it. I put that in the capital account because those monies are used to fund those projects. So what goes into the capital income account for that for next year and for this year is the city county money that we get, the federal and the state grants that are currently on the cash forecast, interest, and then we do get state leasehold tax and foreign trade zone income. So that's what makes up our construction, our capital projects income. If we look at the expenses for it, we have about 44 million in expenses. And so the way it sits is we will be using about 10 million, 11 million from our savings account in 2026 to fund those projects. The PFC account, I didn't have in the slideshow just because right now we continue to collect PFC money. We have based it on the estimated passengers we think we're going to get for 2026. We add in the interest from that for the money that is sitting in that account. And then we transfer that money to called an enterprise fund. So when we purchase or when we purchase like SRE equipment and stuff that is on a PFC application, we will take the funds out of the PFC account to pay for those or to reimburse ourselves for things we have already paid for. The parking account, there is no income coming into the parking account because the parking revenue and the parking management fee are in the operating account because they are daily operating expenses. So we don't have any parking capital money coming in.
There'd be some
But I
interest.
did,
There'd be some interest on that separate account.
yes, just the interest, correct, Sean. Just the interest in that account that's earning on the parking savings account right now. That is our income. And then we have the debt payment to the Bank of North Dakota. And I did put a little bit of insurance in there in both the capital and the parking. But I believe those insurance policies were paid in 2025, so they may not be needed in 26. So we should have, we will transfer the interest out to the savings account and we will use the money that is in the parking account to fund the debt payment. So last couple things to mention would be the projects in the pipeline. So these are the projects as they sit now, completely subject to change. We're at about 67 million for 28, 29, 30. Oh, sorry, probably 27 to 2030. So we have a lot of projects in the pipeline. And I just listed them out there based on the CIP. Subject to change, but at least we know what we have coming down the road. And me and Hunt and Tom are working on what federal funding is out there for us. So now we go to a couple options to consider for the board. Because I was asked, a couple of questions have arose about an internal CFO versus an outsourced CFO. And a marketing associate or an air service marketing manager. And so I dug in a little bit. And I'll talk about first the internal CFO. So this question actually arose during the audit when Brady Marks asked me. He said, would it be feasible for the airport authority to have an internal CFO and HR person? My short answer is yes. It doesn't save you a whole lot of money, but it gives you a whole lot of extra hours. This information is not in your board packet, but if you like it, if you would like it, I can send it to you. I think you guys would all know what, you know, the benefit of an internal CFO would be. You know, you would get additional hours. It's direct insight into the airport. I'm not going to convince you either way. I'm just going to give you the information you asked for. But I will lay it out for you here that right now, for the past year, so if I take the last 12 months back, what you have paid Eide Bailly has been $143,000 for about 610 hours. You pay balance tax and accounting, $32,000 a year right now is their contract for 25, or about 200 hours. So you get 800 hours for 175,000. If you were to hire an internal CFO person at full-time, 40 hours, including benefits, including your portion of the Social Security and Medicare tax, your portion of the benefits, you would only save $9,000. but you would gain 1,270 hours based on a full-time employee. If you only hired a CFO for 30 hours a week, you would save about 51,000. But you would gain an extra 750 hours. So the hourly rate goes down to about 82, 83 an hour, all inclusive, benefit, taxes, everything, versus about 216. So your benefit is not in your dollar amount investment. Your benefit would be in the additional hours and what you would get out of that. I also had a sample job description out there that is very valid. I did some digging on the human resources and HR components, and I think that this would be a phase 2. Because could the CFO do it? Absolutely. But I think more information and more study needs to be done, because right now Pro Resources does it for $65,000. It's their annual contract. They work very closely with ND Fit. It's the North Dakota Public Health Insurance Trust. So I believe they get a little bit better deal on the benefits than not having Pro Resources, but I haven't confirmed that yet. But they also process the biweekly payroll. You know, Sean and Joan are very happy with what they have right now. There's a good relationship. You know, they're great at calculating all of the benefits, including longevity pay, PTO, everything. So I think that would be like a phase 2. I think for 26, you keep them in the budget, but 27, maybe it's something that could be revisited. Because a CFO or a, you know, CFO, HR, they could assist, you know, when new employees come in, you know, and walk them through the benefits and walk them through open enrollment and answer questions with the benefit. I know that that's what I had done in my previous job, was to meet with the employees, and I think that personal touch, that hands-on with them, really helps them understand their benefits and what they're truly getting. And maybe that happens now, I'm not for sure, but I just wanted to put that out there. So then we talk about Flint, and my first indication when I seen Sarah's quote of 586,000 was Fargo could bring this in internally. And then I had a good conversation with Norm Robertson the other day, and he pointed out some good points about an external, you know, marketing firm and the value that they bring. And although I'm not fully convinced that external is the way to go, I am convinced that it needs to be a hybrid approach, because I do feel that, yes, there is value in Flint, a lot of value and a lot of knowledge and a lot of behind the scenes work and ad buys, which I do believe they get discounts for and stuff. And so I understand the value of Flint and I have nothing against them. However, I think the airport could really benefit from some type of internal marketing associate, somebody that would, you know, come in and work hand in hand with Flint, and start to develop themselves in-house, and not necessarily doing ad buys and things like that, but working with Flint to talk about the events at the airport that are coming up and manage and direct those events at the airport. Like the artists, the bands, Fargo Marathon, the veterans, the Make-A-Wish, everything I have listed there, you know, to work and coordinate those things and, you know, basically do promotions at the airport. I truly believe that there is a need for that. And I love going to airports, like in Mesa, you get off and there's always somebody playing the piano, and just, I think it's a very hometown feel, but I don't think it's something that can be accomplished with the current staff. They're already overwhelmed. So I think this would be a very beneficial part of it. And also an air service marketing manager, which maybe Sean could speak to more, because I'm not sure if every airport has one, or if when there's lease agreements, if there's conversations that come up with additional routes, hubs, flights, but that could also be a consideration. So I just wanted to put that out there because I really think that there should be a hybrid approach. And the operating budget right now could handle the additional expense. And so just something for the board or committee to consider. I don't know costs. I'm just kind of guessing. I kind of did the chat GPT to find out what internal marketing associate would be, and it's right around that 55, 60. No idea what an air service marketing manager would be. That is everything I have. That's a lot of information on the budget and my suggestions for the budget. So do any of you have any questions?
Tana, could that presentation be emailed to the board members?
Sure. I'll just send it to Joan. And Joan, would you be able to send it out for me, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And at what point should we be, do we finalize the 2026 budget in July? July or August, okay. All right. You've given us a lot of food for thought.
Maybe we need,
Yeah, it's a lot of information.
we might need a specific agenda item for this at the next meeting. But the direction I would like to see us take is to have Sean make recommendations on these positions and what he would like to see happen. Have Sean study each of these and come back to us. I don't know if we need to put that on the agenda for next meeting to approve it or something we can
Would that be a
look
motion?
for in the next meeting.
Well, I don't think we need a motion, but I mean, I think the other thing that's important, we spent a lot of time on governance. We spent a lot of time on coming up with some goals, short and long-term goals. And I think we should try and solidify those as we prepare the 2026 budget. Because I think there's things that are unique going into this next cycle. I mean, additional air service is big. We can't just expect to accomplish more with the same people. And so we need to make sure we have the staff to support that. So I think getting our board together on some of those big directions that we want to take, and then for Sean and staff to come back to us and say these are the resources we're going to need in order to accomplish that. So I appreciate, again, I really appreciate taking the time to go through this budget. And Tana, I appreciate what you've highlighted here for us to think about. I think that's a great role for the CFO, and that's really what you provided here. So,
Well, and I think some of the duties, again, Sean, this would be up to you, but I think we have consultants that we use to do some of those things and incorporate those costs as we look at this also. That negotiations, I think, with airlines is done by a consultant. Air services is done by a consultant. What we're paying for those services is part of this whole package that we look at. I don't think this is an area where we're trying to save money. I think it's an area where we're trying to improve the performance of the airport and getting the most performance out of whatever method, consultant, employees, or combination of both. We understand all those costs, relationships.
Do we need a motion to receive and file this?
Just to receive.
Okay. Do we have a motion to receive the preliminary budget?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
My only question would
Oh,
be,
sorry.
if we can get some clarification as soon as possible on what the 3% cap means, we may have to go back and sort out growth versus whatever.
I think the legislature's even wondering about that.
So whatever that takes, hopefully there was clarification yesterday.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, number 13, certify the 2026 levy amount to the city of Fargo, NDCCTR 2-06.
Move for its approval.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes. Shawnee? Bird?
Aye.
Bosworth?
Aye.
Capitan?
Aye.
Aye.
The reason, I'll just say, the reason this is important now is that Mike Reitlinger has penciled this in to present at the July 7th City Commission meeting. If that doesn't work, it'll be on the following one, July 21st. Just kind of give the annual update for the board and officially request the bills. If this language were to change, Susan will let me know, or Brandy from the county, but this is what they concurred with before you today for the request.
Well, just to be clear on the process, so the preliminary thing would be just more of an informal discussion with commissioners like we had last year, or will be actually
It'll
a
be
full city commission meeting?
at a commission meeting. Mike has not indicated that there would be the joint meeting between the airport authority and the city commission like they do with the library and the Fargo Dome and the others. That's pending. I don't know when that will be.
Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
It's a good sign, I think. He doesn't expect any issues with the request or the suit.
And again, hopefully we'll get clarification. It may be we request $1 amount, and that translates into a mill amount.
Right.
Instead of a mill amount, it transfers into $1 amount. Whatever that's gonna be.
The language specifically says a levy. There's no mention of mill. But then there's conflict in the century code, so.
Okay, number 14, receive communication and approve request from Fargo Jet Center to construct a ground service equipment building in the NGA.
There's Sweeney's here if you have any questions. This has been pending for some time. It's a building that would be added to the east end of the North GA ramp. Right here is the area where they're putting the ground service equipment building. It's already part of their leasehold, so it's just getting permission from the board to proceed. I don't know the timeline, Jim, if it's gonna be this year or when.
We're optimistic and hopefully can get underway this fall.
Is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
Johnny, Berg,
Aye.
Cosgrove, Capitan.
Aye.
Aye. Number 15 is discuss status of the overflow parking lot constructed in 2024.
Yep, you're still here. As you know, we built a new parking lot out in the southwest part of the property for overflow, and because we closed down the short-term lot, we needed an additional space. That contract was considered temporary, but it's kind of built permanent. The decision that the board was to make with the contract requirements in there is to keep that parking lot. That's the recommendation of staff, is to keep it. What that will trigger then is to put in the stormwater retention improvements that's required by the city to keep that as a permanent lot. And Jeff, if you have anything to add, or Joe, but there would be some additional costs.
Sean, I recall that wasn't there some part of that contract that allowed them to take back the material and recycle it?
That's correct.
And didn't we select that option that they could do that?
Not at this time. No, I don't believe that was the case. It was put it in for now. We'll decide later if we want to take it out.
I think, I just recall back there that there was a lower bid if they could take the materials back at a certain time period. I don't.
Jeff, do you recall how that?
I don't recall offhand, but yeah, if it stays in place, the airport authority would hold KPH some amount of money. I want to say it's, don't quote me on this, I want to say it's $150,000. So I can find that out and
Yeah, we should know
let the
what,
authority know. So
because it's 100, 150 plus surface drainage, everything else. So I don't know, how much are we talking to keep that parking lot? And then what's the all-in cost of it?
Yeah, I can put all that summary together for you. So it would be the cost of the aggregate for DPH plus the cost of the stormwater.
Well, and I just recall that there was some date that they had the right to reclaim the materials. I don't know if that date's approaching or it's still in the future or what.
I don't recall what that date is. So I'll do some research and report back at the next meeting. So
and then what would the cost be to?
Correct.
The lot is definitely needed, there's no question. We'd like to keep it for, future valet or just the overflow. So we'll see what those extra costs are.
I think we do want to preserve that. The other issue though is we're adding 800 stalls. And so we don't want to create an abundance of parking if people are then not going to be using the parking ramp. So, I just think we need to probably get SP Plus advice on how we would phase that in and whether or not we want to put the infrastructure in that lot right now or just use it kind of as a temporary basis for a year or two. And then if we find we have more need, do it at that point.
You could block it off.
Oh, right. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a long term. It's good for us to have. I don't know how we use it, but I think we really want to get people using the parking ramp.
Yeah, so like you say, Jeff said, it could be closed. We wouldn't invest anything in parking revenue control systems out there. We would use the QR code that worked extremely well this year. People come in, they scan it, just like you do with some of the other lots in town, and they pay accordingly. And they monitor that. They do the license plate inventory. So the people who are using it when it was full, all it was the QR code. So that would be the technology. No investment on their part.
Again, I'm just saying I don't know if we want to utilize our new parking lot and make sure that's full before we open up an economy lot.
And we close it until such time that we need it. It's considered kind of like an emergency. That's what it would be. But I don't think it would be wise to tear up that investment that we have out there now. If it's going to cost us a little bit more, I think it's money well spent to keep that lot.
Did the car rentals need?
Well, and that's the other part. Car rentals will need some additional space possibly as they increase their fleets as well. So
yeah,
there'll be a use for it.
Wasn't the valet service parking cars over there?
They were, yeah. We'll see if the valet's going to continue. That's a decision we'll have to make later.
What is the timeline to finish that stormwater retention?
I guess no set timeline, but I mean it would be relatively easy to do. I don't see why we couldn't get something in by the end of this year. So I think that's realistic.
But the question would be if we did it next year, it's not a big deal.
Like when does the city require it?
I mean, if we're not using the lot, we say we're going to defer that.
I can reach out to the city, but I think they're going to want to see it put in this year.
Of course they will.
Or at least a plan to do it.
Yeah. So probably the bigger issue is I think we should go to SP Plus and give us a projection of revenue on the parking now when it's done. And I know that was probably embedded in that.
It was 9 million something, yeah.
But it'd be good to just pull that out and say, okay, what's your projection for the next 2 years on parking? And what capacity do we need?
And we have that graph as well. Sure. So.
Any other discussion on the parking?
My only comment would be that we do have stratification in parking now, and that we ask the question: do we need more economy? Do we need what that structure is? 'Cause again, if we just keep adding piecemeal parking lots, it gets hard to fund a large capital project, and so we need to keep our sights on that too, where the demand is.
Okay.
The good thing is they have the dynamic pricing model to drive people to lots as well. That's worked out really well.
Well, I think we saw valet parking was kind of a surprise. And again, I don't think, I would like to know about the shuttle also. I didn't see a lot of usage of the shuttle. And so that might be a takeoff.
that'll be back again this fall to decide if they would have to make the investment in getting the shuttle back here again, doing the rental and stuff, but that'll be back before we see what's.
A lot of this stuff we're really not going to know until we're up and running here.
Right.
Right.
Get the ramps on.
So we'll bring that back in July to give you some more information on the costs. And I can email them out prior.
Okay. Any more discussion? Number 16, old business. We'll start with the safety report.
That's what the Board of Authority, I guess, in terms of any safety issues that we've had. Pro Resources continues to do an excellent job running our safety program. We're doing a call with Workforce Safety, a telephone interview, Joan, was it this week?
An audit in July.
So they continue to do that. Our employees really enjoy and for the safety things that they do. It's all part of the fee that we're paying them. So as far as our amenities, I don't know if Gina is on or if she had to drop off.
I'm here.
Okay.
Is Raleigh, did Raleigh make it?
Raleigh's here.
Yep, Raleigh's here.
Okay, great. Raleigh, can you do an update on the monument sign?
Sure. So
Raleigh, I'm going to have you stand right here so that we can hear you online with the speakers.
So, first time introduction, Roland Adel with Adel Environmental Design. I'm the wayfinding and signage consultant that Mead & Hunt brought in for the project. So, kind of a little bit of background. So, Darren's going to just kind of present some of these. I got 4 quick slides. So, I was brought in very early on. So, with that very first slide, then if you want to bring that up. With the arts and amenities, once we kind of brought that in, my job was also to come in and kind of blend the design that we created for our original expansion project with new branding. So a good example here is how we had the call letters out front for the FAR. And then as we were already developed that, we were provided the new logo. So with that new logo, this is how that transferred, and this is part of the arts amenities kind of process. So the next thing that we looked at, if you go to the next slide, was looking at that main monument out on 19th. So Indigo and Jill, they had provided these original designs, and then we started looking at that. How can we relate the main monument entrance to going back to the architecture and the new branding? So if you look at that top right image, you have the call letters with the new logo. Using a blue lighting from within, so it has this nice contrast and works with the branding colors and fonts. Then we have the architecture of that very impactful ticketing entrance. And then how can we kind of bring that to the outside? So what you kind of look at right underneath that rendering is what we currently have for the monument that's out there, and actual height of that, and some of the issues with Fargo snow and how that builds up with wind and everything that comes from the north. Can we elevate that? And there's going to be some more renderings of that monument. But the dark gray that you see, we would like to try to use the same exterior middle paneling that we have on the building. And then that kind of tan color that you see underneath the FAR, that would also be the wood or the metal wood paneling that's underneath the soffits of that main ticketing area. The other thing that we looked at too was those original 2 designs to the left, having the digital EMC with the monument signage. The size, personally for myself, just seemed a little bit too large, and we kind of wanted to look at how can we do this that, as all big projects, as we all know, we look at phasings. So we thought one way to do this is just to provide a monument that replaces the existing monument in a phase 1, and that would be the primary monument. So that's just your new logo along with the letters calling out the airport authority. So if you go to the next page, then we can add in the EMC as a phase 2. So we get through this whole process doing the expansion, we have the monument, and then if funding provides, then we could look at adding an EMC that's a 2-sided, and I do have a site plan that we'll look at a little bit later here, that these two could kind of work together. So those top 3 renderings kind of show the distances between the monument
and the EMC, which we would have to have roughly 60 feet between those two. So we have our static, which is primary, then we have our digital, and with the digital, we reinforce with the logo, and also if we wanted to have the address on that. And then down below, you're just kind of looking at those scales again of these. And this maxes for the EMC, the digital board, that's two-sided, and that is the largest we can kind of go, which is 20 foot by 10 foot in height. All these are elevated. The bottom of the FAR and the text is at 3 feet, so we don't really have to worry about that snow buildup. And then if we go to the next slide, the other thing here is really working with the landscaping that we have out there. So we're basically removing the existing monument sign that's out there. The brick is actually a faux brick, so it's a plastic structure that we could lift and remove. We could reuse the power that's there, so this would be internally lit. And then also orientating this so that we're working with the obstacles that we have, such as you see the power boxes, we have fiber cable, we have the traffic control lights. And then that site setback in a property line, those are things that we really kind of need to kind of verify where that might be. And then we could expand that landscaping out to work with the EMC sign. So that was a very quick description of what's kind of going on here, but overall review or kind of a wrap up is just, we looked at this as being kind of a phase 1, phase 2 kind of situation. And just really, what do we need to get started with? And then maybe, 3 to 5 year down the line, if revenues are good, is that something that works for additional screen? So if there's any questions. Oh, and one other thing, if you go back, you'll actually see that sign to the left, that does have a slope behind it. It has these kind of dynamic shapes that once again relate to the ticketing building. So it's not just a flat panel sign, and the F of the FAR also levitates off of that slightly. So there are some very dynamic elements that work with that sign, but it's a simplistic sign that has quality of detail and reference back to the architecture. Yes.
Two procedural questions. And is this part of the airport development, so it doesn't need to be competitively bid?
That's a little bit out of my realm for discussion. Mine is basically more design presentation and experience working with this type of monument signage.
And the second is, are you comfortable that this meets the parameters the city would have as far as setback and such?
Yes, we've talked with Joe with Indigo, and then also our point person from Mead Hunt, who's also working and talking with the city for the proper setbacks. I think the only one that we have a little bit of discussion on is the EMC. How close can we get that to 19th Avenue?
Sure.
That's the only thing that might have to be set back. I think where we have it, if we go to that site plan, I think it does work, even if we do have to locate that further east, it'll still work, mainly because that's highlighting what's going on the property. And the monument is highlighting this is your grand entrance. And having a little distance from the EMC, from the traffic control lights that are to the intersection, actually helps the viewing of that sign.
Yeah.
Sean, didn't we do an RFP?
There was some time ago, and Indigo was the only one that responded. This is a different price, I believe, than what you were provided before. Is that correct, or is this different?
So Jill and Indigo has provided a price that I think you might have those prices in front of you. So they have provided pricing for this.
So is it the same as what the RFP response was? I don't have that.
Yes, it would be a continuation of the RFP that, it's just Raleigh stepped in and helped make it all cohesive, make it all go with.
And what was the status of that RFP and the motions were made? I thought we approved the sign at that point.
But I think what we did was we wanted to have someone look at the whole process from 19th Avenue all the way to someone stepping on that jet bridge and making sure there's uniformity throughout there. So I just really like what you've come up with here. I mean, I think it does tie the whole thing together. So I appreciate your expertise in looking at it that way. So thank you. I think they look really nice. I mean, so I appreciate this presentation. I was curious about the address though. It seems like everyone just puts in Fargo Airport in their Google search, and you know, I'm always less is more in my mind, but
And that's the beauty of, you provide a design, it's easy to remove from that design, but it's a point of discussion. The other thing, just to your point, we are also looking at all the traffic signs that lead back to the drop off. And that's part that I'm working with Mead and Hunt and the overall arts amenities. And what we're looking at is really simplifying that down so that cost of repairs or anything like that, something that is much more, I would say, financially, responsible for some of that. That's what's easy to update and all that. So there is some work that's also working on going forward with that.
hey, thank you. I mean, I think we approved a digital sign.
Yeah.
But I think we really wanted this whole, well, I mean, regardless if we approved it or not, I think where we are now is in a much better place than we were as far as this whole thing. So I guess the question is this, will you come back with the rest of it together, or what's our?
I think the overall discussion that we were looking at for this meeting is this a phase project? Is this a phase 1, phase 2? Personally, looking at a monument sign like this, with everything that's going on, and even with some of the presentations you had for budgeting and experiences like that, I look at the digital, and coming from backgrounds, static is easy, but when it's a digital sign, who's going to be maintaining that? Who's going to be programming that? So there's these added costs to that. So I think those are things that we need to kind of look at. I would love to have this all design, build it and all that, but also I know that this is something that we need to look at those added costs for something. So I'm not sure what you have budgeted for everything on this, but I do feel good about what I'm presenting here for a budgeting aspect, be it now or like 5 years down the road.
Well, if the budget wasn't an issue, what would you recommend? I mean, would you try and combine the signs, or would you keep them separate? If price and timing weren't an issue, would that change what you present?
So, been doing this for quite a long time, even though I look like Father Christmas, and that's probably why I've been doing this for such a long time. But my thing is, you can design stuff that looks great. If you don't have the infrastructure to keep it running, it's not going to look great. And that's my big fear, because I've designed many projects that have digital, and be it healthcare, be it airports, and the people promise that they got somebody that's going to be running that, and then before you know it, it's an empty screen. And if you have an empty screen, downtime does not look good. That looks, not planned. It doesn't, So when you're talking in these like those earlier budgeting discussions, bringing somebody in to as marketing internally, I like hearing that, because that's somebody that's going to be focused on that. When you have somebody that's marketing outside, I have some concerns, because you don't know where that relationship goes, and then all of a sudden they take all their programming people and they go a different direction, and then you got to try to hunt down somebody. And when you're hunting down somebody, is that big billboard out front going to be blank? And that's a big concern that I have, because that needs to have something that's in motion, and that is part of a monument sign that draws your eye and is a focus.
Well, assuming we have that covered.
Yeah.
Would that change kind of what you're looking at as far as 2 signs or?
Yeah, I for me, I'd go either way. I would love to have it all there. I mean, I designed it. I would love to have it all there. But I want to make sure if it's there, I want it working. Yeah.
Right. So just so I'm clear, so you would say you do both those signs at once. Is that kind of what you're saying? If you've got the capacity to manage the digital, or again, I guess, or would you just have one sign? Would you?
I would always have 2. I wouldn't have one. I think having 2 signs, 2 separate signs, I think works to your advantage. on that intersection. Because I think the EMC should have its own, because that, if you go back to the, Darren, if you could go back one page, the one thing is when they're combined into one, especially if you look at those two options, there's competition.
Right.
You know, and having them separate, they have their own importance. And then when you have them separate, and then you go down that main drive, and then you're introduced to the call letters and then the ticketing, each one of those has its own importance. And what you're doing is you're leading the visitor into the campus. And it shows a sophistication, and it shows you a welcome into that space. If you overwhelm them with all that into one, I call that a little bit of a distraction. So, you know, you could, because you'll have all that motion, but then it takes away from your identity.
Okay. No, appreciate that.
Love your design.
Thank you.
I love the way that you incorporated everything that's happening here at the terminal out to 19th Avenue North, and made it all so cohesive. And the idea of putting the landscaping around the monument sign.
Yep.
To move this forward, what we need to do, it seems like we had this issue, we made some progress on it, then sort of got sidetracked till it's back to this year.
Would Jill from Indigo's here, she could present the cost or the bids of the
I
signs.
can answer that question, kind of where we were, and I think it was Rick that when we were doing the RFP and we did a couple of meetings, it was basically then we wouldn't do anything until we had a design that you liked. And with the help of Meat Hunt and with Raleigh, he fine-tuned it, and now I think we have something really nice to present that meets the RFP and serves as the welcome to the airport. So I have provided to you our sketches, which are Raleigh's sketches or whatever, but it's incorporated, it's working with Raleigh doing the design on all of it. And the pricing is on there. The pricing is for the single face monument that would be in the landscape feature, and then the double face iconic message center, which is on 19th Avenue. It's a 10 millimeter EMC. You'd be more than happy with the visual of that. You'll have people on there, and it looks great. There's nobody walking right by it. It's a fabulous, fabulous quality. It's a Daktronics EMC. Code-wise, you had the question on the code. It meets all of code. It's a real simple thing for us. If there's any hesitation to it, I could call the city today and get a permit on it, and you'd know for sure. Nothing can take place unless we have a permit. But if you want it, I can apply for a permit. I'd be granted the permit within 2 or 3 days is typically how long it works with the city. So if that's a question, as far as placement and all of that, it's a real simple ask of the city.
So what is the timing on something like this?
Timing, the electronic message center, they're probably out, I would say right now, about 10 weeks. Once we would get that in, then we would have to finish building the structure. So we're probably about, I'd say 12 weeks, 14 weeks on the larger one. On the one without the message center, obviously we don't have to rely on getting something from Daktronics on that one. We're probably still 8 to 10 weeks out on something like that. So still certainly
Sure.
by fall or whatever, you
Sure.
can certainly have.
So the question is, I guess the other question I have is just the continuation of that visual. Has that been figured out as well? It'd be good. I'd like to see that whole flow.
I do think one thing that we would want to do is also working with Meat Hunt and constructions. We would like to get the material samples so that we can kind of we might want to do a possible mock-up just for a little bit of scale to kind of see, not like it's just really look at materials. And you might actually have that already for exterior mock-up for the exterior of the building.
Oh, are we going in?
Like the wood, the metal wood panel in July. So that might be something that we kind of want to look at, just to make sure that we have the material matches.
That'd be the wayfinding all the way in.
Yes, and that's what we actually have a meeting coming up this Wednesday, I believe, that we're going to be talking a little more in depth on that wayfinding elements that are going to be going in.
It's kind of good to approve that whole thing kind of at once. And then And our issue would be, do we do phase 1 and phase 2 or just do phase 1? Right?
Yep.
I mean,
And doing the next step, so you're going down as you're coming up 19th Avenue, or to tie in the signs that would, Jet Center would use the same stuff. I know, Jim wants to make sure everything ties in.
Yeah, and so a lot of this that we have for like the exterior, the building, the entry signage and all that we've already worked a lot of that. I believe like the pathways that are leading us in, that's going to be very minor. That's kind of its own standalone, but we would be probably approving that. Sean, I would say probably like end of June here. I mean, that meeting that we have with Mark, I think we have that scheduled possibly for Wednesday.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at my
It
calendar.
was like a side little meeting
Yeah.
that we're going to have, but I would think that we have a point of direction that we can present to the next board meeting easily for July.
well, I think I'm just speaking for myself. I think you're on the right track here. Looks good. Appreciate that. And maybe we can just have it all put together so a decision can be made at our next board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
That would be helpful. And then Joe, you understand that timing too.
Oh yeah, it makes total sense. I think this is great. I welcome Raleigh helping tie everything in. That's
Yep.
I think one thing that we might want to look at that too is just landscaping. Pull some pricing in for landscaping. Any other additional
Okay,
power.
so
lines.
this is fabrication installation. It does not include electrical connect. So your electrician will need to provide the electrical connect and bring power to that sign. And we would certainly work with whoever the electrician is on that. So that's the only thing that's not included in there. I can make it real easy. I'll apply for this. It doesn't commit you to anything. I only apply to the city based on the footprint of where we have it. 100% at next meeting. Could we do it? If we say yes, could we do it? There's no more question of will the city or won't the city.
Yeah.
Just let me ask them. It'll cost
that'd
me
be-
$50 or whatever for
That'd
the
be great.
permit.
That'd be great.
So at least we know that.
Question on the FAR right outside the terminal building, is that lit?
Yes. So that'd be internally lit. So the face panel that actually is going to perforated stainless steel. So it's going to have a satin sheen to it during the daylight hours. And then at night, it'll transition to a blue glow.
Okay.
And that'll be and all the colors that we're using here go back to the standards that Flint had provided for how the logo should be used in all the fonts.
Okay.
Yep, so that's
That part's in our contract now.
Yeah, that one's already been part of it. The FAR was part of theirs yes,
Yeah.
because that first FAR was part of that original package.
Yep.
Raleigh just stepped in and went, once the logo changed.
Okay,
it made
then the
sense
other
to
one
change that.
out on 19th Avenue
Yep.
where the sign is now.
The landscape.
Is that also lit?
Yep.
Okay.
So everything's internally lit. There's no external lighting that's coming from the ground. That'll be covered by snow.
And then the electronic messaging board, that's the one that would be like phase 2 or something, I guess, right?
That's what we call it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
Since we have Jody online and Tana online and everybody here, there's a few questions or concerns that were brought up. One, Tana, would this be in the budget? Two, Jill, how involved is the programming of the signage? Like one of the concerns that Raleigh said is you wouldn't want a blank sign. And Jody, maybe you could speak to the benefits on a marketing perspective of having an electronic messaging sign, for instance, when it came to, for instance, promoting FargoAirport.com to pre-book your parking, our biggest revenue generator.
So I guess I can go first. Speaking from a cost point, I only have the estimate for one of them, for not two of them. So I'm guessing if I doubled that, I would have a good indication of that. We don't have it in the budget for 2025, but based on the performance of the operating account at this point, with the expenses being under budget by as much as they are, it could be funded in 2025. I would just do some work with Sean because technically in my mind, it would be a capital project and should be classified as as capital costs instead of operating funds, but there are funds available for 2025 if that's what you're asking. And I believe it could fit in.
The two bids were $264 for the monument sign and $59 for the static sign on the landscape picture.
That's one I didn't have, was the 59. So I was just doubling the first one. So, and then you add in the electrician and stuff, and I would say yes. There is room in the operating expenses or the operating budget for 2025 this year.
And there'll be some additional cost for those other signs, the wayfinding signs as well. It won't be as significant, but there will be some additional costs for that we'll need to consider.
Okay, so if we figured 265 plus 60 is 325 plus electrician and your stuff, if we figured 400, is that a good ballpark?
Is it in the budget for the wayfinding signs as in our construction budget, like
There should be
the
something
FAR
in the
letters?
Construction budget for FAR or for the.
So Tana, that's already in the budget, I believe, for the rest of the wayfinding signs.
They're changing them, they're saying, so.
Okay.
Get a time, but there
We owe
is-
all the signs for the
There
entire-
is some amount in for wayfinding.
That's kind of.
Okay, just to clarify.
I think.
I do have one question on the messaging sign. Who's responsible for putting in all the messages?
That's that question of programming.
That's the question I just asked.
Yep, so that would be either someone at the airport or someone with an agency or anybody could. It's all done cloud-based, so done by anyone.
Jill, have you had, in your experience with electronic signs locally, have you had an issue with it being too cumbersome for a business to maintain and get that message on signs?
It's very simple now. It's such a simple program. The generation below me and below me again, it's what they know. It's what they do. It's very simple for them. Look at the Blue Cross Blue Shield on the corner of 13th and 45th. They do a phenomenal job. They plan their season out and they just load it up.
So it doesn't have to be a cumbersome process.
And we talked about Flint could provide guidance for that, and if there's somebody internally, like an intern or something like that, we could have an arrangement like that, or if like Tana had presented, if there's an internal marketing person. So I think there's different options there. And the other thing we had talked about is the appeal of if you brought in a new airline or new flights and how you can promote some of those kinds of things through the board. So there's different ways you could use it, and I think that's something that we can dig in deeper and provide some additional recommendations and even some projections on what kind of revenue that would generate.
Give a shout with any other questions. That's fine.
Because of the timeline, is there any way we can speed up the decision-making process?
I guess, the question is, would it make sense to put together the budgets for the July meeting? You can do the preliminary with the city, and then we can get budgeting, to present for landscaping, polling power to that additional sign. We could reach out to Flint for a programming cost, so we could get all these additional costs beyond just the fabrication, and we would still be in our lead time for fabrication and install before the end of the year, if we wanted to,
It'd be
correct?
October probably, and so if we got approved in July and we move forward right away or whatever, so August, September.
Yeah, and that way, it's actually, if we didn't go forward with everything, it's still in place before the grand opening of the new wing, which is scheduled for July or January. So I think if you're worried about getting it in place before next year, I think we have time to have it in place before next year.
I think an electronic sign would provide an invaluable service for communicating with, like I think there's 18,000 people that drive up and down 19th Avenue North on a daily basis. It would help with communicating, whether it be parking lots or pre-booking parking or the terminal, whatever.
Well, perhaps what we can do is give the direction. Let's do the whole project. And I appreciate your concern about the programming, but if we're investing in a sign and we're requiring staff to make sure that the sign is properly used and programmed, that shouldn't be a problem. So, I know we've lost a couple members here, but my preference is to see the whole project.
And I think Raleigh and I will work on getting together all of the costs, so you don't know with the electrical, with the landscape, of how Raleigh sees or whatever, so you have the whole package, and what the whole package was, and the rest of the signs coming down, even though some of it probably will come out of the budget on that, but one's down the driveway. I don't know.
And I know the argument. If the argument is nobody's going to program it, we just make it a priority of staff that you know, and it's find a home. So I'm not concerned about that. I'd be more concerned, yes, if we had the asset and it wasn't being used, then this board needs to step in and find a way to get that done. But I think existing staff or additional staff can handle it.
Technology-wise, it's nice to hear that it could be accomplished through the cloud.
Yeah, the benefit that we have now is that you don't have to pull data line out.
Right, it doesn't have to be a radio.
It's all cellular. So the digital, you don't have that, but you still have the power pole and everything. But I'd like to reuse as much as we have out there as an asset. So.
Back in the old days, I changed signs, letters on the signs, with the suction pole.
Right.
Like this is a whole new world. Thank you.
Thank you
both. All right. Proposed airport hotel RFP, Tom Schauer.
You have to jump off.
Okay.
So Tom provided some information earlier that Leiden Hunt is developing the RFP, statement of interest and qualifications for the hotel development. They expect to have a draft available in the next few weeks, maybe by the July meeting.
He said next week.
Next week? All right, so we can present at the July meeting. He recommended aligning the hotel construction timeline to minimize operational impacts, such as to consider the following factors: availability of convenient staging space, construction traffic to and from the area, effects on employee parking and access. He believes that the final RFP could be out as early as this fall. However, they suggest the airport authority postpone hotel construction until the majority of work in the existing staging area and terminal related projects are completed. This approach would help reduce operational disruptions and mitigate conflicts between multiple contractors operating within confined airfield space. So therefore, if the RFP went out this fall, you select a developer in early 26 or mid 26, construction could begin in 2027. That would be the tentative time frame for right now. So that's all that we have on that. But look at the next meeting to maybe get more information, or maybe actually have the RFP in hand that we can look at.
Okay.
And I want to compliment you, Sean, both on moving forward with the RFP now, but the recommendation of not complicating things by starting construction. That would be potentially disastrous.
We'll install a parking lot today and tear it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's happened. So we'll do that.
Okay. Dr. Bashani, I think it lands on you. Governance committee updates.
Yeah, I think this one's really pretty simple. We're to the point now that people have given their feedback on the policies, procedures, and particularly the items that we'd want to track. There's probably some research methodology questions we'd want to answer within those. Saying we want a 90% approval rate or something, what's that even mean? So I would like for us to have a maybe 1 hour more special meeting with the chair's support to walk through that and be a little more thoughtful in fleshing out what do we mean when we say satisfaction and approval. Those are very vague terms, and maybe that's all it ever becomes. These are aspirations to have a high level of satisfaction. It'll get very complicated if we try being specific that 9 out of 10 people have to say X. I would tell you it will become messy, but we need to decide that as a group, not just me babble that out. So if the chair's willing, I'll work with Tom, Sean.
Dr. Schatz?
I'm still back on the RFP. To schedule an hour to just kind of, and see when Jeff's available.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. And then there's a new requirement by the state of North Dakota. This is number 17. It's required now that we have a public comment period regarding topics discussed today or from the previous meeting held on May 13th of 2025. So I would like to open that up, public or online, if there are any comments. If there are none, is there a motion to adjourn?
The only thing I'll say about the public comment period, it's required in August for all political subdivisions. Where we put this on the agenda going forward is up to the board. It would require a slight modification to the bylaws that we have right now as far as the order of agenda and so forth, but it'd be up to the board if you want it now. We've always been an open board. Anybody's been able to talk about anything and everything during our meetings. It's not really an issue for us, but it would be an agenda item going forward. The other thing I'll mention is that worked with the chamber and Flint. They put together a survey, business travel survey. I believe the survey had to be completed last Friday, I believe, or maybe it's this Friday. That there will be a business roundtable on June 30th at the chamber from 9 to 11. Brandon Halverson is going to present the status of all of our projects and where we're at. They have about 30-some businesses signed up to date. And then Mike Lum is coming in person to do the air service update and kind of do an education piece on what air service development is and what Fargo's efforts have been for the last number of years, as Mike represents us from Polaire Aviation and our air service development. So that'll be on the 30th. I don't know, I assume that you got invitations through the chamber. If not, we can send that out. Both the chamber and EDC sent the survey out to all of their members, so hopefully we'll have some good data. That's all I've got.
Joan, did you email or forward that email yesterday?
I got it.
Oh, okay. So I think everybody should that should be in their email, the invite to that roundtable.
So you did get it or not yet? Have you seen it?
Yes. Well, I got Jones.
Yeah.
19th. It's at the chamber. So that's all I got.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I guess I have a second.
Mm-hmm. Meeting adjourned.
I'm the only one left.